Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Marie Campos, and I am the Education and Foundation Director here at Anchor. Welcome to today's webinar. Our topic today is how to write a winning DSP Recognition Award nomination. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to cover. Quick reminder that since we're using internet access and your computers to connect to the webinar, all the audio is being broadcast through your computer, so if you could please remember to just check the speakers on your computers, make sure the volume is up and it's not off mute. Sometimes that addresses a lot of the technical questions. But if you do have questions with regard to having technical issues on the call, I'll provide the ReadyTalk support team's phone number in the chat box so that you can have it as a reference point. And then throughout the webinar, if you do have any questions, please use the chat box on the lower left of your screen, and we'll try to address them as we get to them. And then the final reminder to everybody is that we are going to be sharing a copy of today's recording and the slides with everyone. So please keep an eye out for an email from Anchor to let you know when the files are ready for you to download. Now that housekeeping is out of the way, I'll turn this over to our presenter, Catherine Berlin. She is Anchor's Director of Public Policy. Catherine?
Thanks, Marie. Hello, everyone, and welcome to How to Write a Winning DSP Recognition Award Nomination. As Marie said, my name is Catherine Berland, and I'm the Director of Public Policy here at Anchor. And I have been the person in charge at Anchor of this whole process for the past, last year was my first year, so this year is my second year, and I'm very excited to be part of this process with all of you. So I'm here to guide you through the process of the DSP Recognition Award nominations. As Marie said, if you have any questions along the way, please type them into the chat box on your screen, and we will save some time at the end of the webinar to address any questions. So what this webinar is about today, you know that your DSP is a rock star, but it's really hard for the judges reading nominations to see that unless you present your nominee in the best light. We get hundreds of nominations every year, and a lot of them sound pretty similar. This presentation will give you all the information you need to write a great nomination to make sure that your DSP really stands out in that crowd. We've made some changes from last year, including using a new platform for accepting nominations to help us streamline and make the process simpler. I'm going to walk you through the changes and give you tips and guidance along the way to help you show your DSP in the best light possible. Now, before we get started, I just want to take a quick poll and ask those of you on the webinar today if this is the first year that you're planning to submit a nomination. So go ahead and just use the radio buttons to vote, and once we get enough votes in, I'll go ahead and move on. I have to keep talking as you vote because otherwise people hear silence and they think, oh no, audio stopped working. So that's why I'm continuing to talk. But good, it looks like we have more people who have done this before. So some of you are old pros. I'm still glad that you're on this call, on this webinar, because I am going to talk to you through the new process that we have for submitting nominations. But it looks like we're split about a third have not done this before and 2/3 are old pros. So fantastic. Okay, let's move on. So there are 3 steps to writing a great nomination. Step 1 is to plan. Think about what you want to say and gather together all the information that you'll need. Step 2 is to write. I'm going to help you understand how to best tell a compelling story that will really get the judge's attention. And then step 3 is to submit using our online system. Before we talk about what makes a great nomination, here are some important dates to keep in mind. We will start accepting nominations on September 12th. That is Monday, and that's going to kick off DSP Recognition Week, which this year runs September 11th through September 17th. But you do have 3 months. You have until December 12th to get your nominations in. So even though that's 3 whole months away, don't put it off until the last minute. Writing a good nomination takes time, so make sure to give yourself plenty of time to think about, write, and polish your final entry. This deadline will not be extended for any circumstances, including technical difficulties. I highly recommend that you plan ahead and submit at least a week before the deadline so we can help you if you do encounter any problems or technical difficulties or have any questions. Note that if you work for a multi-state or multi-site agency, that each agency is limited to 3 nominations per state per year. So you should coordinate with your supervisor to make sure that you don't go over that limit, as we will only consider the first 3 nominations that we receive. Once we have all the nominations in, our judging committee, which is comprised of anchor staff and current and former DSPs, will read and consider all the entries. We get hundreds of nominations, so it takes us some time to read them all. Once we have met to identify finalists from all states, we will meet again to select one national recipient from the best of the best. We'll tell the nominators and the executive directors of recipient agencies in early February who the recipients will be. The public announcement will come a little later in April because oftentimes agencies want to plan their own events and press releases celebrating their exceptional DSPs. And then the big event happens in May in conjunction with Anchor's annual conference. We will hold an award ceremony recognizing each state recipient and our national recipient for 2017. So step 1 is to plan. Before you even start writing, you want to think about what you want to say. So look at the nomination form. Think of stories you can tell that demonstrate each of the criteria. Ask yourself, what do I want the judges to remember about my DSP after they've read the nomination? As the judges are sitting around a table talking about the nominations, what stories will they talk about? Gather together the requested information about your nominee and their agency. And I'm going to say this till I sound like a broken record. Don't leave this for the last minute. If you try to rush through it, you probably won't write a very strong nomination, which will put your DSP at a disadvantage. Each entry is required to include an affirmation letter from the individual served or his or her family member. Although it is not weighted as heavily as the other criteria in the nomination, a strong affirmation letter can often be the deciding factor between 2 great candidates. Don't let this letter be an afterthought. You can ask someone to prepare an affirmation letter for you before you even get to the rest of the nomination. One quick tip is to give the letter writer some guidance based on his or her communication ability. Let them know the judges love to read stories about great experiences the DSP has helped them have, not just about what a great person the DSP is. Step 2 is to write. So, okay, you've decided who you want to nominate and thought about a few things you want to say about them. Now let's talk about step 2, actually writing the nomination. First, let's talk about what you'll find on the form. You will see several fields to enter contact information about your nominee, yourself, and your agency. It's important that we have accurate and complete information here so that we can let you know if your nominee is selected, and also so we can reach out to the appropriate congressional office so they can pass on their congratulations to your DSP as well. We use the information you provide in this nomination to order awards and for publication in our Recognizing Excellence magazine, so please make sure you have spelled your nominee's name correctly. Now let's go over what the questions are on the nomination form. There are 6 categories, and as you'll see, they are each weighted a little differently. For each question, you have a 150-word limit. Don't think that writing more makes a better entry. It's not about how much you write, but what you say that will earn points. The first category up is advocacy, weighted heaviest at 25%. For this category, we want you to provide specific examples of the DSP's advocacy activities that have affected change on behalf of people with disabilities. This can be anything from advocating one-on-one on behalf of the individual to being part of a larger call to action. Most importantly, show us what your DSP has done to make a difference, big or small, in the life of the person that he or she serves. The next category is relationships, weighted at 20%. For this category, we want you to provide examples that demonstrate the relationships the DSP has helped the individual to form with people other than the DSP, other than other paid staff, or other people with disabilities that the individual lives with. Tell us how the DSP has helped the individual he or she supports to form genuine relationships with others. If the DSP has been instrumental in helping to strengthen family bonds, that can be included here as well. Our third category is creativity, also weighted at 20%. Here we want you to tell us about times that the DSP has been creative in individualizing supports and services provided. Again, this can be something big or something small. What's important is the impact it had on the individual served. Our next category is to select one NADSP tenant that the DSP exemplifies. There are 9 tenants, but for this question you can choose just one. This question is worth 15% of the total score. The 9 categories are person-centered supports, promoting physical and emotional well-being, integrity and responsibility, confidentiality, justice, fairness, and equity, respect, relationships, self-determination, and advocacy. Now is a good time to mention that on the nomination form there is a link to the NADSP site that explains more about each of these tenets and can also be a reference for you as you prepare your nomination. The next category is additional accomplishments. Here is your opportunity to tell us anything else that you think we should know about your DSP that doesn't fit neatly into one of the other categories. Don't use this category to give us the DSP's life story unless it is relevant. What judges are looking for are stories that show how your DSP has really made an impact on the person or people that he or she serves. And then finally, you will attach an affirmation letter, which is worth 10% of the total score. You may also attach a photograph to the nomination. This photo will not be used in the judging process, but may be used in a Recognizing Excellence magazine or other print or electronic publications. If your DSP is selected for recognition, you will have the option of submitting an alternate headshot to be used in the magazine. It's important to write a thoughtful entry for each criteria. We can't award points if you leave a blank, so make sure you don't do that. We also look at and judge each criteria independently, so if you include everything in just one category, we won't be able to split the score between other categories, which means your nomination won't get the consideration it deserves. Now that we've gone over the criteria that's on the nomination form, let's turn our attention to how you tell a story to put your DSP in the best light, to make sure they really shine for the judges. We find that there are 2 types of nominations, those that show and those that tell. Don't just tell us how great they are. We want you to show us why your DSP deserves special recognition for the great work that they do. We get a lot of entries that talk about how dedicated the DSP is, how hard they work, and how much the people they serve love them. This is all fantastic, but it doesn't give us a lot to go on when we're trying to select our finalists, because everyone who is getting nominated works hard, is dedicated, and has great personal relationships with the people they support. Lots of people supported call their DSP mom. Lots of people pull extra shifts. Lots of people go above and beyond every day. We need you to show us what makes your nominee different from everyone else. Here are some examples of things that we see often in nominations. Think about if you were the judge reading these nominations, how would you make a selection if this is all the information you had? You'd want more. You'd want stories that support these statements and show us these things that you're telling us. Telling a good story, it really is as easy as 1, 2, 3. A showing entry will first describe the trait, and then describe the action, and finally tell us what happened because of it. In other words, end with a so what. End by telling us how the action led to the result. Remember to use this pattern for every story you tell, and it will help your DSP shine. So let's look at how we can strengthen some of the descriptions from before. The statement, Jane is an incredible leader and advocate. That's great, but too many entries stop there. You need to follow it up with a story that shows this. What has Jane done that showed you that she's a leader and an advocate? Let's make this stronger. She demonstrated these skills when she organized a petition drive to get the city to add a public bus stop near the individual's house. And then end with the so what. So now the individual can ride the bus to her job instead of needing someone to drive her all the time. See what a difference that makes? Let's go to the next one. Let's take John. John works hard at both his jobs but still finds time to be a great father to his kids. This is a great story and shows how he balances his professional and his home life. But you want to draw a picture for the judges with your words. So let's do that. CJ had a goal to lose weight and be more active, so John enlisted his own sons to put together a community kickball team they can all be a part of. It's now a Sunday afternoon tradition for John, his boys, their neighbors, and CJ to go play out in the field. The kids have a blast spending time with their dad, and CJ loves being part of the action. See what a difference telling a story makes? And finally, one last example. Kelly approaches every day with creativity. Now, you know what I'm going to say next. Show me how. Show me what she's done. She used her graphic design background to create custom books for everyone in the house using the things they like to help them practice communication skills. The books make the guys feel special, and it's helped them communicate better with Kelly and each other. What the writer has done here is shown the action and then linked it to the positive outcome experienced by the people served. That's what goes into a winning DSP nomination. So let's summarize some do's and don'ts to keep in mind as you write your DSP nomination. Do tell us stories. Follow that 1, 2, 3 pattern. Describe the trait, tell us the action, and link it to the result. Tell us how the actions help the person served. If you do that every time, you'll tell great stories that we will judge well. You want to make sure when describing accomplishments that you are telling us accomplishments that have helped the person served. We will often read nominations that have a lot of extra information about accomplishments, personal, athletic, with kids, education, and while these are all very interesting, it doesn't give us a lot to go on as judges because what we're really looking for is what they've done in their role as a DSP to help the individuals that they serve. Finally, make sure you answer every question. The system we use this year allows you to save your work and review and revise it before you submit. Please take enough time to draft your nomination ahead of time so you're not sitting at the computer right before the deadline trying to scramble and get something in last minute. You might want to have someone else look at it before you submit to find ways to make it even stronger. And then a couple of things to avoid. You don't want to describe attributes, characteristics, education, or career background unless it is relevant. Unless you can link any of those things to a positive outcome for the person served, it's not relevant to this contest. Don't use full names of the people served or reveal confidential health information. We ask in your nomination that you use first names only or initials to talk about individuals. If you have any questions about your obligations under HIPAA, you can talk to your supervisor. Along those lines, we also ask that you do not identify your agency in your answers or in the affirmation letter. We'll have all of your agency information in the contact form which the judges do not see. But in the answers themselves, make sure to not mention the name of the agency. I personally get to redact entries, and my hand gets tired if I have to draw too many black boxes around agency names. This year, as we move to our new system that does not include an easy way to handle redactions, we may have to disqualify entries that fail to abide by this rule. And lastly, make sure you are submitting a unique entry for every nominee. Unfortunately, we've seen it happen too often where we see very similar nominations for multiple DSPs. And we understand why this happens. You're in a rush, you're anxious to get a nomination in, and you cut and paste a little too freely and turn in a couple of nearly identical nominations. While we do get a lot of entries, it's not so many that it is not very obvious when information is repeated, which is not fair to your DSP. So please make sure you allow enough time to write a strong nomination for each DSP you submit because they do deserve that recognition and consideration. Okay, so we're finally on to step 3, submitting the application. So you've done your pre-work, you've written your answers, and you're ready to submit. Here are your final steps. Read back over what you wrote for each entry. Did you answer the question asked? Tell a 3-part story, and give us information unique to your DSP. If someone familiar with your DSP were to read your entry, would they know it's about them instead of about some other DSP out there? Have someone else look at the nomination to make sure it's as strong as possible. And finally, double check the name spelling. As I've said, we need to have correct information when it comes time to order awards and publish the Recognizing Excellent magazine. So very important that you double check the name is spelled correctly. This year, as I've mentioned, we are using a new submission system to help us streamline and improve the submission and judging process. The biggest change is that you will create a unique profile that will allow you to enter your nomination into the online system. You will be prompted to create a new profile using your email address. You can add information, save it, and exit out to return later up until submissions close at midnight Eastern on December 12th. You can also submit more than one nomination using a single profile. I have a couple of links up on this page. I'll tell you that these links are not live yet. One of them is live. The link for the nomination itself is not live, and it won't be until next Monday when we do open the process. But you can go and get information at the second link there. Okay. So let me go ahead and walk you through the new system. These are screenshots, and this first one here is what the screen will look like where you will create your account. The fields with the asterisks are required to create your profile. Email address, first name, last name, and company name. Everything else is helpful but not mandatory. It should pre-fill with your information. This one, of course, pre-filled with mine, so you will not use my information. You'll use your information on this one. As the nominator, you will be our primary contact if we have any questions about your submission, so make sure that you have your information in correctly. When you're finished with this page, hit Save and Next to move to the next screen. The next screen is for your CEO or Executive Director information. I couldn't fit the whole screenshot on this slide, so I broke it up a little. We will notify CEOs of DSPs that have been selected for recognition at the same time that we notify you as the nominator. We also like to have their mailing address and phone number and email address for additional communications that we may have to, as we go through the DSP process. So use the buttons at the bottom to save your work and navigate to the next screen, or you can also go back to the previous page. The third page is where you enter the DSP's nomination. It's very important that you fill these fields out correctly. We use this information for printing certificates, ordering awards, and publication in the Recognizing Excellence magazine. So please, again, make sure that you spell the DSP's name correctly. Equally important is making sure you tell us the right state for your DSP to be considered in. We have one national recipient, but also recognize a DSP from each state. The state you put in this field is the state the DSP will be considered for. So even if your organization is headquartered in one state, if your DSP actually works in a different state, make sure to tell us where the DSP works in this field here. Similarly, the nominee work address field should give us the actual work location for the DSP, which may be different than the address for the headquarters for your agency. Also on this page, you can't see it on this slide because it's down a little bit further, you'll enter in the DSP's home address. We need this for when we reach out to Congress members to make sure we have their correct district. We also ask for your DSP's job title, length of time in the field, and length of time with the agency. And then finally, we ask for their preferred email address. The next and final screen is where you'll put in the actual nomination. Up at the top of your instructions, I want to take a moment to highlight the rules one last time. Most importantly, please be aware that the deadline of midnight Eastern on December 12, 2016 will not be extended for any reason. We inevitably have people contact us after nominations close asking for a way to submit. In the past, we've made limited exceptions for people who have technical difficulties, but it gets really complicated to try to accommodate these requests, and it's not fair to the people who got their nominations in before the deadline, so we really have to be firm on this year. Please, please, please get your nomination in well before the deadline so that if you do run into any problems, you can reach out to us before the system stops taking nominations. I mentioned before that you should not include any personally identifying health information about the people supported in the nomination. One way to do this is to use first names or initials only. And finally, and this is also really important, please do not mention the DSP's agency in any of the nomination fields. We already have all your information from the prior pages. We want to maintain the impartiality of our judges, and any mention of an agency means we have to redact it, which is time-consuming and tedious. If an agency name is mentioned in the nomination or affirmation letter, we may return it to you for correction or disqualify the entry from consideration altogether. The best way to avoid this is to ensure that neither the entries nor the affirmation letter include the agency name. If you need to, you can use a Sharpie to black out the agency name in the affirmation letter before you scan it. That's fine. Okay, so now that the rules are out of the way, let's get to answering questions. I don't have screenshots for all the questions because they're pretty self-explanatory. You do have a 150-word limit for each answer. Remember, it's not about how much you write, but what you say that is important. I did want to highlight the question on NADSP tenants because it's a little different from the others. On this one, you will first select one of the 9 tenants to describe using the radio buttons, and then answer the question. And then finally, down at the bottom, you get to where you will upload an affirmation letter and an optional photo. Remember to check the affirmation letter to make sure it does not include the agency's name. Uploading a photo is optional. It will not be part of the judge's consideration, but it is helpful for us in putting together the magazine and awards presentation. If your DSP is selected for recognition, we will ask you if the photo you included is the one to be used, or if you'd like to submit a different one. Finally, you have the option to save the nomination. One of the advantages of the new system is that you can go back in and make changes before you finalize and submit. So hit save often as you go so you don't lose your work. Once you are happy with the information entered, you'll hit Save and Finalize, which will send the nomination over to us. Make sure you don't skip this last step. If you don't hit Finalize, the nomination never gets to us. Okay, you are all ready. Now that you've got all the tools you need to write a winning DSP nomination, I just want to let you know if you have any questions, you can contact myself or Esme Grant Graywall using the information on the screen. Email is the best way to reach us quickly. Thank you for watching this webinar, and good luck to your DSP. And with that, I will go ahead and field any questions. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat box. Okay, I do have a question about the describing the relationship category a little more. I would be happy to do that. So what we're really trying to get to, and this is the question that we have changed the most frequently over the years. And this year we've really tried to focus all of the questions more on outcomes for the people served. In the past, this question has been more about focusing on the relationship between the DSP and the individual served. We're really looking to expand that out, recognizing that one of the most important outcomes, most desired outcomes for people served is to form friendships with people that aren't paid to be there. And so recognizing that that is one of the most important outcomes for a lot of people that are supported, that's why we changed this question around a little bit. So while it's fine to talk about the DSP having a close relationship with the people they serve, we really do want to have you focus more on how the DSP has helped the individual supported to make friends beyond the other people that they live with and beyond paid staff. So that's really where that one's coming from. Marie, do you see other questions that are coming in? Do you want to go ahead and?
I do. Yep. So there's a couple questions about whether or not folks can submit video or video nominations.
Good question. We actually had this come up for the first time last year, and we did allow one video submission because we were asked if we would, and we said, sure, why not? So we don't have a way for you to upload that as part of the nomination form, but if you wanted to have us consider a video, you can go ahead and forward it to me at kburland@anchor.org. And I can get that distributed to the judges that are judging that particular entry. Just let me know who it's for, and yeah. But I would say yes, we will accept and consider video entries. You still have to do the rest of it. You still have to do the written. But if you wanted to supplement with a video, that we see that along the same lines as an affirmation letter. So it wouldn't be weighted as heavily as the other written categories, but we certainly would consider it.
Catherine, along those lines, if they're emailing it, is there a particular format that you guys prefer, or sometimes there's size limitations? So do you guys want it in like a YouTube link, or how did you receive the video last year?
Yeah, we received a YouTube link. That's better because you're correct. Sometimes there are size limitations. I think our email can accept up to 20 megabytes, which is not a lot for a video. So if you do want to go that route, a link's better. Certainly when you email it, if you don't get a confirmation from me that I've received it, follow up with me to make sure that I do actually get it in a format that I can view.
Okay. The next question is, the nomination asks for the address where the DSP works. If he or she works in the home of the individual being served, do we include that address?
I would say generally yes. If it's a group home, for example, yes, I would include that address. If it's, if your DSP maybe splits time between various individual privately owned residences, then probably not. You would want to instead include the address of where the agency is located. This category or this information, what it's really trying to get to is just making sure that we understand what state the DSP is actually working in. So we do prefer to have and it's also helpful for us to have the street address, again, for congressional contacts. We like to, when we contact congressional offices, be able to say this DSP lives in your district or this DSP works in your district. That makes representatives, feel a little more connected to them if they understand exactly where it is. So, I would say generally go ahead and give us the address where they physically work. If it is a private residence as opposed to a residence that is owned by the provider, then you probably don't do it.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yes. For folks who are new to this process, can you just quick history, are you able to talk about when this awards recognition began, and also there should just be one person per state is recognized, right? So each of the 50 states plus the national awardee. Is that correct?
Yeah. So what we do is we have one national award winner. Last year our national recipient was from Kentucky, but then we also have we select one DSP per state. So we'll have the DSP of the year for New York, the DSP of the year for Kentucky, the DSP of the year for Connecticut. So we do recognize, we don't always have every state represented, but ideally we would have 50 state recipients in addition to the national recipient. And then I also see the question includes how long we've been doing this. I'm going to expose my ignorance here. I'm not 100% sure how long we've been doing the awards. We started the National Advocacy Campaign in 2001, and I believe that's when we started doing the recognition awards, but I don't know that with 100% certainty. Marie, you don't happen to know that one, do you?
I don't, and I'm poking around on our website, and we go back until 2007 on DSPs of the year. So.
Okay. Well, we're not 100% sure of how long we've been doing it, but we've certainly been doing it longer than I've been at Anchor, which has been almost 4 years at this point. And it is a very nice ceremony that we have, and it's the publication is really great. I mean, it's just a good experience all the way around for those of us judging and those of us that receive the awards and get to come to the award ceremony. I mean, it is really a special thing that we do. Okay, next question.
And actually on that note, one of our participants on the call just confirmed that the awards go back at least till when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans about 2005.
Okay. Okay.
At least. So,
At least.
Thank you. The other question that's popped up is just, confirming for folks that we are going to make sure that you guys have access to see the recording for sure and the links and the slides. We need to do some, find a home for it, but we'll make sure that you all get notification from us once the information is available. So you'll have you'll have the contact information, you'll have the recording, and the slides.
Yeah, and we also have you can't see it yet because the nominations haven't opened, but we do have ways to contact us, through the nomination form. If you have questions, there's a link that you can click on and get over to us. But the easiest, fastest way is just to send me an email directly. Again, I'm Catherine Burland. I know many of you on the phone know me. Those of you that don't, I'm easy to find. We're only a staff of 11, so I'm the only Catherine here.
Those are it for the questions at this point. Does anyone else have any questions? If you do, please just type it in the chat box, and Catherine, maybe we can give it a couple minutes and see if anything else pops up.
Sure, and I'll go ahead and move back to the screen that does have the contact info if you want to copy it down.
Awesome. Okay. I think we've gotten to all the questions at this point. So Catherine's contact information is here, and then obviously if you folks can have any questions, you can reach any of us at Inkhorn. We'd be happy to kind of help answer your questions. But I think at this point we can probably go ahead and conclude today's webinar, and we'll send a notice out to everybody as soon as the information is ready for you to download and access.
Great.
But thank you. I think we're good.
Thank
Catherine.
you, everyone. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.